South Africa's new tax boss has recently said he will die trying to fix the problems at SARS. Edward Kieswetter has been the SARS Commissioner for 2 months. He's already had to warn this week that there could be a shortfall in the revenue SARS is meant to collect, which is basically the money that keeps South Africa's wheels turning. Kieswetter is also gunning for the American consultancy Bain and Kohler, saying SARS will pursue civil and criminal charges against them. SARS, in a sense, is being rebuilt after the Nugent Commission of Inquiry identified massive failures in governance and integrity at the tax body under former Commissioner Tom Moyane. During Moyane's tenure, Bain overhauled SARS's operating model, but rather than improving tax collection, that has been blamed for a multi-billion rand decline in tax revenue. Moyane was axed by the President. Kieswetter was appointed. He joins us in studio now. Thank you for being with us, Commissioner. You have a lot on your plate. I wonder, before we get to all of that, just ask you, the rogue unit came up. Your people have been in your position before, both Ivan Pillay and Pravin Gordhan, in the hot seat, massive findings. I'm sure you were curious. I just want to know, when you arrived at SARS, did you start digging? Did you try to get to the bottom of that, or is that history for you now?
Well, first of all, I don't think it's appropriate that I comment on the Public Protector's report right now. I have not read the report.
Not the merits, but do you have any opinions?
But clearly, what I have done is to clarify the work that we do. And to be very clear in that to our staff that we act in terms of the law. How we do that is spelt out. SARS does not create or invent its own work. SARS is mandated in law. There's a Tax Administration Act that tells us what we may do, when we may do it, and what instruments in law we should use when we are required to do that.
Yeah.
And what I have done as a new commissioner, for the avoidance of any doubt, is to re-clarify that we work within our mandate, to re-clarify that I expect every member of staff to be professional, to be ethical in the way that they do their work, and that anything short of that is in fact out of line with our policy, it is out of line with law, and in many cases it would border on criminal behavior if we did not honor the legal ambit of our work.
You've picked up on something important, because there's a debate whether it was fully legal or whether it was illegal for SARS to perform secret surveillance. That's part of the rogue unit. But can you tell me, is surveillance part of what SARS does at the moment?
SARS may do a number of things to obtain additional information. It may issue a friendly request to a taxpayer, and where taxpayers cooperate, we would receive the information from the taxpayer. We're also entitled to receive information from third parties. In certain instances, we may use certain legal instruments like a search warrant to obtain information. If SARS requires additional information, it may go to court. It may institute a tax inquiry, a formal tax inquiry to engage with the taxpayers. So the Act sets out very clearly the processes and the legal instruments that's at our disposal.
And you're operating within that?
And we operate within that.
All right, let's talk about revenue. So I remember the shock and horror, I think it was under Moyane's tenure, when it was announced that there would be a 30 billion rand shortfall between expected revenue coming in and what was actually going to be collected. That was blamed for the VAT increase a year later. Since Moyane's left, though, things have gone from bad to worse. There was an even bigger shortfall, 57.4 billion. So can we still blame that legacy, Tom Moyane, and what happened then, for where the revenue service is now?
So, Francis, let me just set the record straight first. We did not issue a revenue forecast for this year. We were engaged.
I understand that. I'm looking at the last financial year.
No, I'm talking about this financial year. You started earlier and said that we will not make the target this year. When we were asked, we said that revenue comes from three sources. The first is tax is just an overlay of the economy, right? And so when the economy does well, there's obviously a greater opportunity for revenue because more people have jobs, so more income tax gets paid from employees. Businesses do better, so there's more corporate income tax. People buy more, so there's more VAT. People buy and sell properties and assets, so there's other forms of taxes. So tax is simply a reflection of the economy. But in addition to that, we also, our work is to improve compliance. Not all taxpayers are necessarily up to date with their tax affairs. So what we do is we would then remind people who have outstanding returns that they need to return. We will remind people who have not submitted their assessments to file. We would assess those declarations, and to the extent that our risk profiling work identifies that there's a risk, we would do an audit that may result in a revised assessment. Then we have to collect the debt, and so there's a whole program of compliance work that delivers additional revenue that is not voluntarily provided by taxpayers, that requires intervention by us. And in the third so-called revenue bucket would be new tax policies. So in this coming year, for example, you will know that there's carbon taxes, you will know that fuel levies are introduced and depends on the fuel prices. And so that's where revenue comes from. So given that background, if the economy is not doing well, and the organization, as I said to you earlier, the fact that we now have a new commissioner doesn't mean that everything of the past is fixed. It's going to be hard work and take a long time for the hollowing out, the breakdown of governance, as you quite rightly pointed out, is reflected accurately in the Nugent Commission. That's the work of rebuilding SARS. That is going to take months, if not years, to turn around. And so we're working in an economy that is suppressed and an organization that requires significant turnaround, and we are working hard at that.
All right, so you do have a target of 1.42 trillion for the current financial year. So let's clarify what you did say, that you're going to aim for that, but it depends on the economy. It depends on where we're going. You can't guarantee.
So when Treasury, when the Minister of Finances publishes the printed estimate, it's not a target, it is an estimate, okay? And so we often think of that as a target. It's a printed estimate. It's what, if we take all the assumptions in the economy, plus the areas I've shared with you, it's the best view of that gives a printed estimate. The actual revenue will be a function of the reality that we have experienced. And therefore, what I did say is we will do everything that we need to do within a suppressed economy, and we will, I hope I don't die, but we did say we will die trying, proverbially, to achieve the printed estimate. We are not going to give up. And so I cannot sit here and already predict that we will not make the revenue estimate. That would be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I want to ensure that every single one of our almost 13,000 people remain focused on the work that we do to ensure we deliver the best possible outcome under the circumstances that we find ourselves in.
Well, you are dealing with low morale, I think you've said, within SARS, and also a South African public that's less than enthusiastic, I would think, right now about paying taxes. What would your message be to South Africans who are fed up, who don't want to pay SARS?
Firstly, I will acknowledge that they are fed up. And I will tell them that they have good reason to be fed up, they have good reason to have lost faith and trust in the system, particularly what happened at SARS, and I would affirm that. I think to be in denial about anything makes you part of the problem and a part of the solution. In the same way within SARS, we have spoken openly about our challenges and the work we need to do. But at the same time, I would reach out to every South African and say that if the South African Revenue Service fails, if SARS fails, our democracy fails. And none of us want to live in a failed democracy. The resources we need to collect capacitate, enables government to build a capable state. And so rather than using our fed-upness and the fact that we are disenchanted with the present conditions, I would appeal to South Africans to recommit to the civil duty, the moral responsibility, but in this case also the legal obligation to pay taxes, to go into a state of lawlessness is going to spell a negative future, a doom for all of us. And I certainly, whether I am wearing the hat as a commissioner or as an ordinary South African taxpayer, I will do whatever I can to ensure that this beloved country of ours succeeds. And if you love South Africa, you will work towards doing that which is necessary we live in troubled times, let's acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Work together to build ourselves into the future that we wish for.
What are you doing inside SARS, and how bad is it? Because we heard about this massive brain drain. Do you have the resources that you need to fix SARS, as you say?
So when I arrived, I had read the report. I had
the Nugent Commission.
The Nugent Commission report, and I was very clear that I accept the report as a true reflection of the state of SARS. But at the same time, I needed to make the assessment myself of the real state, the lived experience. And so in the first few weeks, I visited many of our offices, met with about 80% of our staff, spoke to them directly, listened to them, saw the pain in their eyes, and felt their pain, and looked at their yearning for a leadership they could trust. I met with the leadership and spoke openly about what I sense on the ground. I spoke openly about the challenges as is presented in the Nugent report, and I'm committed to implementing every single recommendation in the report. I have addressed people who in the organization have been marginalized. They sit there, they do nothing. I have had one-on-one interviews with them. I have reassigned them to do meaningful work that is so much needed within SARS. I've reached out to people who have left, and on a case-by-case basis will consider bringing them back into SARS, and then building the capability within to ensure that we can deliver the best in terms of the mandate that we are expected to deliver.
Have you fired anyone?
Have I fired anyone? I've been there for 2 months. I haven't fired anyone. I don't look for people to fire, but I can also do I am very clear that performance is not negotiable. I set high standards for ourselves and for our staff, and the first reaction of a good leader is not to discipline people and to fire them. It's to inspire them to be the best versions of themselves. And that's what I do. Make sure people have work they enjoy, make sure they understand the meaning of their work, make sure that they know what they do to win, give them regular feedback about their performance, and then ensure that they are either rewarded or face the consequences of their performance. You don't try and catch people out, but you hold them accountable.
All right, we're running out of time, but you're gunning for Bain and Kohler. Please just remind us how Bain, in your view, broke SARS. I mean, it's incredible to me, because even if it was obtained through dubious means, you would think Bain would have the resources to actually do some sort of work that didn't tarnish its own reputation in the end. Just tell us where that process is.
So, we are not gunning for anyone.
You want to lay criminal and civil
We are
charges.
simply, on the one hand, pursuing our mandate in law, and if that results in people having to be held accountable, we will hold them accountable and use what we need to do. If we have service providers that engage with us and do not deliver a value for money, or there are procurement irregularities, we will hold them accountable. In the case of Bain, I am very clear, Francis, that the Nugent report reflects accurately their work, that their work was based on an intent that didn't serve the best interests of SARS. Now, to some extent, Bain has acknowledged that by returning the fees and the interest earned on that fees to us. But it's more than just that. It's the brokenness of the organization. It's the fact that people's lives have been affected. It's the fact that the revenue collection has suffered because of the work that they have done. And so in my view, the operating model of SARS was based on international best practice. My humble opinion, in fact my conviction, is that there was no need to review the operating model of SARS. And so one has to ask, what was their real intent? As far as we are concerned, they have to answer to that. They have not come with full disclosure. I expect that we still need to talk about what other civil claims can we hold against them, and to the potential that we're working with the criminal investigation authorities, whether there is a criminal case to which they must answer.
All right, and we'll follow that process. Thank you very much for your time this evening. That was the new SARS Commissioner, Edward Kieswetter, with us. Let's take a look at your weather, and then Full View continues.